go up. Can't do much right now. Russia's responsible.
Can't do much right now. Russia's responsible. Basically saying his hands are tied. Warning the gas prices will go higher. Former Energy Secretary Rick Perry is with us now. Sir, thank you for your time. I heard you last week, and you were beside yourself about green energy policies, really at the forefront of the decision-making on behalf of this administration. I don't know, you can tell us, how does your argument fit into those comments we heard from yesterday?
Well, the president could do some things very quickly. He could renew those 5-year leases, offshore leases. They could resume drilling on federal lands. There's a number of things that they could continue to do. They could approve the pipeline. I think there's 6 LNG authorizations sitting at FERC right now waiting to be done. So there's some clear messages, but you know, this is Wizard of Oz time for the American people. You know, the Biden administration is saying, please don't pay attention to the little man behind the curtain. When the little man behind the curtain said clearly in 2020 when he was running for office that he was going to shut down fossil fuel drilling, he said he was going to really put the quietus, if you will, on the oil and gas industry, and that's exactly what he's done. And the message that it gets sent is that if you're an oil and gas company, whether you're a big one like ExxonMobil, Oxy, or whether you're a small independent, we're going to do everything we can to try to strangle you, whether it's regulations, whether it's slow walking permits. And they can say all they want about it's Russia's fault, it's Russia's fault. But this problem started on day one when he stepped into the White House, and one of the first things he did, if not the first thing, was to stop the XL pipeline. All of those send powerful messages to the fossil fuel industry. And I might add, it also sends powerful messages to those on the left that basically drive the agenda of this president. But it's going to cost the American people. They're already seeing it, not just at the pump, and that's horrendous amount that they're paying there, but also in everything that requires energy to either be delivered or be produced. That's the cost of the Biden administration. There is not a lot he can do in the short term, but certainly in the long term, because oil is basically traded on the futures market. And so decisions that he could make today could have a real impact on the futures prices of crude, which in turn could drive down the cost of gasoline. But the fact is, it's his policies that have caused this, and it's his policies that are going to continue to drive up the cost of living in America.
Let's just show everybody this graph here of what it's been like over the past year. If you're paying at the pump, you kind of know. You can go back from March of 2021 and just look at that steady increase in gas prices all the way up to, then you see that big spike, and that is when Russia invaded Ukraine. Just practically, sir, if you look at in Texas, the number of oil and gas wells there that are not perhaps producing right now, just practically, how long would it take to start getting more domestic energy production into the system?
Well, I think it would take probably a year to get more production in. But I think, Dana, the more important thing is what I said earlier about if they sent the messages that we're going to stop the war on fossil fuels, then the market would correct, I think, in a very short period of time, we would see some relief. I want to bring up one other thing that's really offensive to the people who are out here putting a lot of Americans to work in the oil and gas industry, certainly in my home state and across the country. And that is this not even lightly veiled attack on the oil and gas producers in this country when day before yesterday, President Biden basically said that they were the cause of the problem, that they weren't out there doing their part. And nothing it could be more offensive to me. I mean, that's a pretty unpatriotic thing to say, Mr. President, about the oil and gas producers, which are basically our national defense. Yeah. If you want to talk about a defense policy, have an energy industry that is vibrant, that is delivering oil and gas, not to just the American military, but to our allies as well. So, take the foot off of the neck of the oil and gas industry. Quit using them as your scapegoat to, dog whistle to the left, and get America back on track by sending the message that we're going to open up our oil and gas industry. We're sitting on 100+ years of energy in this country, and using the climate as your existential threat, I happen to think is pretty poor, not only public policy, but it's also pretty bad politics.
Looking for oil anywhere but here at home, right? Talking to Venezuela et al.
Yeah.
Sir, thank you for your time. Rick Perry down there in Round Top, Texas. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.